Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is dedicated in loving memory to Nishmat Chaya Rosa Bat Ari, sponsored by her son Shmaya Stimler. Also dedicated for a speedy and complete Refuah Shlema for Rabbani Chana Farhi, Hana Bat Sima Fega, and Rabbi Eli Abadi, Eliyahu Shimon Ben Mazah Fortuna. And as well, in loving memory, Mrs. Lily Safrli Nishmat Leah Bat Chana. Her philanthropy has reached so many throughout the entire world. Sponsored by David E. Ash this week, is the cold brew, in honor of you and your substantial capacity to do good today and every day. Also, how you doing? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה baro. Just like to ask also our listeners to let me know if the sound of the recording gets garbled or electric. It kind of sounds like I turned into a robot. Please let me know. I've had it on a couple of the recordings recently. I have to get a new phone. I haven't had a chance to go out and find the new phone that I need to get for the classes. But seems to be a problem with the actual microphone. So if it gets garbled or electric, let me know. There's not much I can do. It ruins the class. But at least that way, I'll make sure to go out and purchase this new phone for the breakfast in the class. Okay, Hazaku Baruch, my friends. I know that not all of you were here on Shabbat, but for those of you that were here on Shabbat, we had a class that covered a lot of the ins and outs of why it's so important to keep kosher. And again, for many people, that's not an issue. For many people, that's their biggest issue. But on Shabbat, we were talking a lot about why the Torah makes such a big deal out of keeping kosher and why it's so important. And I want to maybe just kind of take one step further in this discussion by quoting the words of Haramban. The end of last week's parasha talks a lot about the laws of kosher, of which animals are kosher, which fish are kosher, the bugs, etc., etc. And then the parasha that we begin this week says, Isha ki Tazria v'yaleda zachar. If a woman becomes pregnant, it gives birth to a baby boy, and it starts telling us the laws of Brit Milah on the 8th day. You have to give the baby a Brit Milah. It also talks about the laws of purity and impurity, but the Ramban asks right away a very obvious question. Ma inyan Shmita etzel Har Sinai. What does Shmita have to do with Mount Sinai? What do these two things have to do with one another, that you place them one in smichut, connected to the other? Why is kosher a lead in the laws of kashrut of an animal, talking about the baby that a woman's going to have? And says Ramban that the reason is that a person needs to be aware and to be careful and to understand how important the laws of kashrut are, because the food that you eat will have an impact not only upon you yourself, but also upon the unborn child that you're going to have. The child that comes after a person has eaten kosher is a different child that comes after a person has eaten non-kosher. What a wild idea to think that the spiritual essence and nature of a child that's born is going to be tied to whether or not I ate a hamburger with cheese or without cheese. How in the world is that going to be translated into the child? But the Torah says it, so it must be so. That is the case. So therefore we connect the laws of kashrut to Isha ki Tazria. We mentioned on Shabbat that there are certain animals and certain non-kosher ingredients that come from animals that have vicious tendencies or unkind tendencies or natures. And that's not something we want to introduce into our children. And therefore, we are very careful to stay away from those things. But not only are we seeing that that's relevant for me, but we're even seeing that that's relevant for our children. And it might be like some people say, Rabbi, it's too late for me already, but it's not too late for your children, for the next generation. And therefore, my friends, the laws of kashrut must definitely be paid attention to and upheld. But my friends, the focus of my class today is not in terms of kashrut per se. I want to illustrate and talk about something that perhaps takes us along a little bit of a different path. The Chida writes on these words, Darkei Yosef brings beautifully. The Chida writes, Isha ki Tazria v'yaleda zachar. When she becomes pregnant and fathers and has a child that's a son, those letters, ki Tazria v'yaleda zachar, are the letters of the word zechut. The first letter in each one of those words, ki Tazria chaf taf v'yaleda vav zayin, are the letters of the word zechut. But the zechut, the merit of the children, is in the hands of the parents and specifically the mother. If a person, is looking to get married, a lot of times they ask themselves, would this woman be a great wife? And I often encourage people to think not only if this woman would be a great wife, but also would she be a great mother? And I encourage women to ask themselves the same question. He might be a fantastic husband, lots of fun, very spontaneous, but is he going to be a good father? Is he going to be there, at night with the kids? Is he going to pay attention to them and have patience for them? Or is he going to be dichit from the word go, right? The zechut of having wonderful children is latent in the merit and in the personalities of the parents. Now, to me, there's got to be one obvious question, and that is, how is that fair? How can you punish the child for the parents' kashrut indiscretions? Or even more importantly, their midot, the way that they behave, their honesty. How could you punish the child that his spiritual or her spiritual essence or nature should follow the essence of the parents? What did the child do to be born with such a spiritual handicap because his parents decided or didn't decide to do the right thing? Why is that relevant? Why does that make sense? Why is it fair? And the answer, my friends, is actually ironic. It's not fair. It's not fair. But I want to ask you a question. No one in the history of the world has ever asked if it's fair that when someone punches you in the face, it hurts. Not fair, I didn't do anything. Why should my face hurt just because you decided to punch me? Everyone understands that fair or not, that is a reality. And my friends, that is my topic or my point for today. Forget the kashrut aspect. Don't forget it, but don't focus only on the kashrut aspect of this conversation. What we're really reading about over here is a concept of spiritual realities. If, as an example, a mother is a heroin addict in pregnancy, the child will be born a heroin addict. Now, again, is that fair? No, it's not. But the child's makeup is built of the cellular structure, of the DNA, of the physical realities of the parents that made it. It's a admixture of his and her DNA. And if there's drugs flowing through his or her system, then the nature of the child will be such that they will receive that from their parents. At the age of 35, one day, right before Rosh Hashanah, I was unable to walk. My feet were killing. I could not understand what happened. I was at the time playing basketball for 2-3 hours a week at least, okay? And all of a sudden, one day, I can't walk. My feet are in such pain. I asked the doc. Doc takes one look. He says, it's gout. He says, you must drink a lot of red wine. I said, actually, no, I don't drink a lot of red wine. I don't particularly love wine. He says, well, you must eat steak every day. I was like, actually, no, I don't eat so much red meat all the time. He says, oh, well, does someone in your family have a history of gout? Called my mother. Turns out, we do. So at 35 years old, I have to figure out what I'm going to do with this. Is that fair? No. But it's the reality. The same way there are physical realities. We understand that they just are. They just exist. Spiritual things are no less real. That's my take home for today. Spiritual things are no less real. Can I ask you a question? Someone asked me once, they were like, Rabbi, I don't believe in prayer. I said, why not? He says, you know how many times I prayed? You know how many times I prayed I didn't get answered? Do you know what I asked him? Some rabbis would start, no, faith, Hashem, with spiritual intervention. I just asked him a simple question. I said, do you believe in the lottery? He says, yeah, of course. I was like, have you ever won? He said, no. I said, the fact that you've won or not doesn't make it real or not. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to decide when you're going to win the lottery, and God's going to decide when He answers your prayers. Hopefully He answers your prayers more often than you win the lottery. But realities are not decided in a casual way. I do believe in it, I don't believe in it. It is real whether you like it or not. It is there whether it's fair or not. So therefore, says the Torah, you want to know what the kids are going to be like? Understand that what you invest, what you put in your body before the child is born is going to make a difference to what the kid's going to be. Non-kosher food is going to produce a kid that has that challenge. Now, does that mean that you have no chance if your parents ate scampi and spam and I don't know what? No, of course that's not. Of course a person has a choice. Rabbi Akiva was the greatest scholar the Jewish people ever had. He became a Baal Teshuvah at the age of 40. 40. Forget his parents. Ask him what he ate. But you know what Rabbi Akiva needed to overcome in order to become that man? You know what an uphill battle it had to be? Which, again, it didn't need to be that way. So many people make this journey back to being a Baal Teshuvah. But it doesn't have to be that way. They have an uphill battle to climb. And a lot of that is because of the choices that their parents made, both before they were born and afterwards in raising them. My friends, there are spiritual realities. If you pray, if you study, if you give tzedakah, that lifts a person's neshama. Now, I might ask for physical realities based on my spiritual realities, but the Torah says it doesn't work that way. But what you can know for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, is that 100% of the time, your spiritual reality will change because of your prayers. Now, this is the crazy part. Again, I want everyone to understand what I'm saying. Your physical reality may not change demonstrably from your spiritual reality. We know that it does, but it may not be something that's visual. I may be praying for refuah shlema and I don't see it. I may be praying for a job, for things to go my way, and I don't see it. I cannot promise you physical realities changing immediately or demonstrably from spiritual realities. But I can promise you that after prayer, you're not the same person as before prayer. I can't promise you that after tzedakah, you're not the same person as before tzedakah. My friends, we are constantly changing, evolving, upgrading our souls, our nishamot. I want to share with you a magnificent piece. The Rashi brings a powerful idea in the name of Rav Simlai. Rashi says, Ishaki Tazria v'yalda zachar. He quotes the Gemara, and he says as follows. Why is the creation of a human being, why is it discussed now, 3 books into the Torah, having a child? And yet the creation of animals is discussed in Bereshit already. Listen to what he says. Excuse me, it's already discussed in Parashat Shemini. We discussed last week animals, and this week we're discussing humans. He says, Ela ne'emar, the pasuk says, Achor v'kedem sartani. You set siege to me from behind and from in front. Listen to the words of the Gemara carefully. Im zacha, if the person merited, omrim lo, they say to him, Ataki damta b'maaseh bereshit. You were created first in the original Genesis, in the creation of this world. You were created first, if he merits it. V'im lo, and if the person does not merit it in this world, omrim lo, they say to him, Yitosh kadamach. A mosquito was created before you. Shilshul kadamach. Hainu, what does that mean? And most people translate it. If the person merits it, we say, you know something? You were created. If the person doesn't merit it, we say, you know, you were created even after the bugs. Okay? Person merits it, we say to him, wow, you were created in the beginning. So there's a famous question that's asked on this Gemara. And the question is as follows. I don't understand. The guy merits it, so we're going to lie to him? Who was created first, animals or men? In Genesis. Animals. In fact, animals, fish, insects, it was all created before man. So if he merits it, we lie to him? You were created first? So there's two answers to this question. The first answer to this question is that I read was amazing answer. The first answer is, it's not that you were created before all of them, but they were created for you. So in other words, when someone invites you for a dinner party, they don't invite you to the house and then start chopping vegetables, right? But the kavod that they give you is that when you come to the house, all this preparation has been done for you. Now, could you imagine the salad thinking that the dinner guest was coming for it? That would be ridiculous. So, which came first? The thought that came first, the point that came first is, I want to have a dinner guest. So therefore, the dinner that I create before it comes is for it. That's one answer. But I want to give a second answer that just blew me out of the water. Sefer Otzot HaTorah writes, he says that a human being has two parts to him or her. There's the animalistic part, the physical, the blood, the skin, the bones, the muscles, the sinews, the veins, the bones, etc. That's the animalistic part. We share that with practically half of the, almost the whole the whole animal kingdom, right? Not the United Kingdom, it's something else, right? Do you understand? There's a part of us that's animal. Even our brains, share so much DNA with the reptilian brain, etc., right? Lots of different things. DNA, we close to chimpanzee, Azaku Baruch, right? We obviously share enough in common with mice that you could do trials on mice and figure out if a drug would work for a human. It's not 100% accurate, but we would not be doing these trials on a piece of paper, right? We're doing them on a mouse because they share enough. So you and a mouse, a lot in common. So my friends, there's an element of us which is animal. And there's an element of us which is the soul. And that no other animal has. What is that soul? Our rabbis tell us that the soul is chelek Eloha mimar. It is a piece of the divine, of God himself. He breathes into us his spirit, so to speak, his soul. And now, in this mixture of animal and soul, this mixture of animal and God and godliness, a human being is given the wheel and they get to choose which way they turn the wheel. Says the Gemara, if you did not merit, you live your life like an animal, you were the last animal created. But if you differentiate yourself from the animal kingdom, if you make yourself someone whose life revolves around his or her soul, if your choices are divinely driven, your kindness, your charity, your honesty, all those midot that are the terminologies that we use to describe God, right? If that's who you are, who are you? And what is your substantial capacity to do good today and every day? Who are you? If you are your soul, then your soul actually predated creation. You are God, so to speak. You've got a piece of Borei Olam in you. Is that who you identify with? Today, we live in a world that is obsessed with how you identify. Shema Yisrael. But my friends, Judaism has been asking that question for a very long time. Not which gender do you identify as. Not, what's your preference. But which are you? Are you a body or are you a soul? If you're a body, then the crazy thing is, your reality is that you were created last and you are least important. You know why? You know why? Because imagine all that effort and all that potential that was put into you that is now wasted. And at least an animal is doing what it was designed to do. You have a badly performing CEO and a well-performing janitor. Who's more important to the company? Think about that for a minute. Wharton educated, Harvard Business School, 50 years of experience, but he's doing a bad job of CEO, versus a well-performing janitor. Who is more important to the company? The well-performing janitor. Because at least he's doing his job, he brings benefit, his added value. My friends, in the role that we were cast to play in this world, if we're fulfilling our role, if we're identifying with our soul, if God gave us this thing over all of creation, and we're doing our jobs, then ata kidamta lema'aseh bereshit. My friends, your spiritual reality is, whether you like it or not, it is whether you recognize it or not, it is whether you identify with it or not. That is your spiritual reality. But if you choose to see yourself as an animal, then you know what happens? You are an animal. If a person is not faithful in relationships, then they are an animal. Think about that. Like a pigeon or a dog that will sniff the other dog walking the other way because it's in heat. Hazaku Baruch. You've graduated from human to dog. And I don't say that to put someone down. I'm not saying that a person that's unfaithful is a dog because I'm trying to put them down. I'm saying that is what you are. Why? Because that is what the animal side of you is doing. When it abandons someone that it made a promise to. A dog can't make that promise. It can't promise to be there in sickness and in health. It can't promise its faithfulness because its nature is not that way. But a human being has something else. Ataki damta lema'aseh bereshit. So when you say about the world that there's all these pressures out there, and I can't survive and I can't win, it's too hard. Sorry, Rohi. All of those pressures, they were created after you. They cannot have their influence on you if you choose not to let them. That's your spiritual reality. That's your legacy. That's your destiny. That's your power. Tonight we're going to hear from a man called Ted Comet. I hope everyone is here 7:15. We'll hear a remarkable story of what it means to not identify as an animal, to rise above, to not let anything hold you down. This is a person who gave his life to Am Yisrael. Maybe not in the same way as I do or other people do, but perhaps he's a lot more valuable to the Jewish people. He spent 70 plus years with the JDC, looking to save Jews from around the world, from oppressive regimes. Whether it's in Syria or in Lebanon or in Yemen or wherever the case might be. This is a person who was so marked by his experiences that he chose to do something great about it. Many people see challenge and they shrink from it. And then there's some people that see atakidamta lema'aseh bereshit. There is nothing that has been created or that could be created that would be greater or stronger than you because you were there before it. You had your feet before it. You planted your legs squarely, ready to be able to take on anything and survive and rise above. I hope you'll join us for that Be'ezat Hashem this evening. But my friends, whether or not you do, I hope you remember as well this spiritual reality that you have inside of yourself. There is a lion, there is a Ferrari. It is locked under maybe a couple of inches of dust in some people, but it is there. And it is capable of powering you through and past anything that you are experiencing. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi